Hello everybody, how are you guys doing? Hope everybody is doing amazingly well. Welcome back to another lesson of English with Ashish. And guys, today we are going to learn a very important tool, a very important topic, which is a relative clause. So today we'll learn what is a relative clause, how do we use it, when do we use it, how do we identify it in a sentence, how many types of relative clauses we have in English, everything about it. Make sure you watch the lesson until the end. It is very important, guys. This is going to help you step up your English game as well, right? I'm excited. As you guys know, I'm always excited. I know you guys are too. Let's do this. Let's start with understanding what exactly a relative clause is. See, guys, a relative clause is a dependent clause. It is a dependent clause. That means it cannot give a complete meaning on its own. It depends on an independent clause. So a relative clause is a dependent clause that identifies what? A noun or a pronoun and functions as an adjective, gives information about the noun or pronoun it identifies. So it is a dependent clause that functions as an adjective, right? What it does is it identifies a noun or a pronoun. That means it comes after a noun or a pronoun, generally a noun, and gives information about it. The information can be essential, important to the sentence, or non-essential, extra to the sentence, right? So it is a dependent clause that functions as an adjective. The only reason we are giving it this name, relative clause, is because it is a clause and it starts with a relative pronoun. And these are who, whom, which, that, and whose. These are the relative pronouns a relative clause starts with. All right. Now, let me show you some examples and make you understand how relative clauses function in a sentence. Example number one. The man who helped me in my tough times lives in a village. Which man am I talking about, right? The man who helped me in my tough times. This is the man I'm talking about. So this is my relative clause, which is giving information about the noun man and helping us to identify which man the speaker is referring to, which man the speaker is talking about. If I leave this clause, relative clause, and read the sentence, I wouldn't know which man the speaker is referring to, right? The man lives in a village. Which man? Which man are you talking about? Which man are you referring to? We don't know, right? So this piece of information is essential to identify the men, right? The noun men. And now we know which man the speaker is referring to. The man who helped me in my tough times lives in a village. So who helped me in my tough times is a relative clause starting with the relative pronoun who, which is functioning as the subject of this clause, then the main verb helped, then the object of the clause me, helped whom, me in my tough times is an adverb. All right, second example. Nobody wants to work with the boy whom you brought to the office last month. Right. Nobody wants to work with the boy. Which boy are you talking about is the question. Which boy is the speaker referring to? We don't know, right? But with this information, we know which boy the speaker is referring to. Nobody wants to work with the boy. Which boy? Whom you brought to the office last month. So this is the relative clause, whom you brought to the office last month, which is giving information about the noun boy. Which noun is the speaker referring to? The speaker is talking about the boy whom you brought to the office last month. Now we know which boy the speaker is referring to. So whom you brought to the office last month is your relative clause, which is starting with the relative pronoun whom, then the subject of the relative clause. This is the subject, then the verb brought, right? Brought where? To the office last month, right? So here, whom is the relative pronoun and it can be replaced with who as well. Who you brought to the office last month. Whom is used to refer to the object of the relative clause, but in modern English, it is generally replaced with the pronoun who, right? Nobody wants to work with the boy who you brought to the office last month. Next example. The movie that we watched yesterday was very inspirational, right? So the movie was very inspirational. We are giving information about the noun, about the subject, the movie. But which movie are we talking about? Which movie is the speaker referring to? We don't know, right? With this piece of information, we do, right? The movie, which movie? That we watched yesterday. We watched a particular movie yesterday, and the speaker is talking about that movie. So this piece of information helps us identify which movie the speaker is referring to. The movie, which movie that we watched yesterday. So that is the conjunction, right? Relative pronoun are P. We is the subject of the clause, watched is the verb of the clause, yesterday is just an adverb, time adverb. All right. The movie that we watched yesterday, right? When the relative pronoun functions as the object of the verb, it can be omitted as well. I can simply say the movie we watched yesterday was very inspirational. All right. Next example. We love going to London, which is my favorite city. So we love going to London is the main sentence. It's a complete sentence, right? It does not need anything. It's a complete sentence, right? We love going to London, right? We is the subject, love is the verb, going to London is the object, right? We love going to London. Now, London is a proper noun, right? It is a proper noun. It does not need any identification. It does not need any modification, right? It's a proper noun. It is already identified. Now, whenever you identify a proper noun, whenever you identify a noun which is already identified, which is already proper, the information you give about it is going to be extra, non-essential, and it has to be offset using a comma, which we have here. So we love going to London. London, which is my favorite city. So which is my favorite city is a relative clause starting with the relative pronoun which, then the main verb, right, linking verb, then the subject complement, my favorite city, right? But this piece of information is extra because London is already identified. It's a proper name, right? So whatever information you give about it is going to be extra. So, which is my favorite city is a non-essential relative clause or a non-restrictive relative clause, right? Identifying the noun London. Next example. The boy whose parents are waiting outside is responsible for the thievery that took place yesterday. The boy is responsible for the thievery that took place yesterday. Which boy? Whose parents are waiting outside. This is the boy we are talking about. This is the boy we are holding responsible for the thievery that took place yesterday, right? So whose parents are waiting outside is a relative clause starting with the relative pronoun whose, then we have the subject of the clause parents, right? Then we have the helping verb, then we have the main verb, all right? Then we have an adverb. All right. So whose parents are waiting outside is a relative clause that is identifying the noun boy and giving essential information about it. The boy, which boy? Whose parents are waiting outside? That boy we're talking about is responsible for the thievery, which thievery that took place yesterday. So we have two relative clauses here. Right. Let me show you that. So the first relative clause is whose parents are waiting outside. This is giving information about the noun boy. And the second one is that took place yesterday, which is giving information about the noun thievery. Responsible for the thievery. Which thievery? That took place yesterday, right? So this is what a relative clause does. It comes after a noun and gives information about it. It functions as an adjective. The information can be essential, important, or non-essential, extra, non-important. All right, now let's talk about the relative pronouns a relative clause starts with, because this is really, really important for us to know. Number one, who. Who as a relative pronoun is used to refer to a person. It can only be used to refer to a person. It cannot refer to a thing, right? And what is its role? It can work as the subject of the relative clause or the object of the relative clause. All right. And it can give essential information and non-essential information. That depends on how we use it. Second, whom. Whom is very specific. It is not used that much in modern English, but we should know how to use it. So whom is used to refer to a person and it functions as the object of the verb or the preposition, as the object. It cannot function any other way, all right? And it can give both essential and non-essential information. And in modern English, whom is replaced with who, all right? Next, which. Which as a relative pronoun is used to refer to things, non-living things or animals. All right. And it can function as the subject of the relative clause or the object of the relative clause. And it only gives non-essential information, right? I've seen some people using it to give essential information. Don't do that. If you want to give essential information about a thing, use that. Do not use which, right? Next is that. That is a very unique relative pronoun. As a relative pronoun, it can refer to a person as well as a thing, and it can function as the subject of the relative clause as well as its object. But it only gives essential information. Essential information. Do not use it to give non-essential information. All right. Next is whose. Whose is used to talk about the position of a person or a thing or an animal, anything. All right, and it is used as the adjective of a noun. All right, and it can give both essential and non-essential information. All right, now let's look at all these pronouns, relative pronouns, one by one. Let's start with the very first one, who. Example number one. I am looking for a person who can help me with coding. I am looking for a person. What kind of a person? Who can help me with coding? Right. So I am defining the person I am looking for. So who can help me with coding is my relative clause, that is identifying a person, right, and giving information about it. Essential information. All right. So as I told you, it refers to a person and gives information about it. The information can be essential, non-essential, and it is functioning as the subject of the relative clause. Who can help, right? So this is the doer of the verb help. Okay. Second example. I don't want to talk about the girl whom I am dating. I deliberately used whom here, right? So I don't want to talk about the girl. Which girl? Whom I am dating. So whom can be replaced with who, right? So I don't want to talk about the girl who I am dating. So here, who is referring to the girl, which is working as the object of the verb dating, right? I don't want to talk about the girl. Which girl? Who I am dating. So it's identifying the noun girl and giving essential information about it. It can also give non-essential information. I don't want to talk about, let's say, I don't want to talk about Rahul. I don't want to talk about Rahul, who is my neighbor. Who is my neighbor? So Rahul is a proper name. Whatever information you give about Rahul, the proper noun is going to be non-essential. All right. So this is how we use who to refer to a person and give essential and non-essential information. Number two, whom. Whom is very specific and it is not used that much in modern English. And whenever it is used as a relative pronoun, it refers to a person and works as the object of the relative clause. Examples. Number one. The man whom I'm talking about has a lot of experience in this domain. The man, which man? Whom I am talking about, right? This man I'm talking about has a lot of experience in this domain. So the man, which man, whom I'm talking about. I can replace this pronoun with who. The man who I am talking about has a lot of experience in this domain. Number two, John Jones, whom I picked to win the fight, has had more than 30 professional fights. So here I'm giving information about John Jones, which is a proper name. So the information is non-essential. And since the information is non-essential, we have commas to offset it. John Jones, whom I picked to win the fight, has had more than 30 professional fights. I can replace this pronoun with who I picked to win the fight has had more than 30 professional fights, right? So it only works as the object of the relative clause, all right? And it's not used that much in modern English as well. It is generally replaced with the pronoun who, okay? The next, that. That as a relative pronoun can refer to both people and things, and it gives essential information on it, all right? Example number one. The bag that I gifted you on your last birthday is more expensive than my phone. Which is more expensive than my phone? The bag. Which bag? That I gifted you on my last birthday. This is the bag I'm talking about. The bag that I gifted you on my last birthday. So that is the relative pronoun, right? I is the subject, gifted is the verb, you is the object, right? Um, the bag that I gifted you on your last birthday is more expensive than my phone. So it's referring to a thing, giving essential information and working as the object of the verb gifted, right? Working as the direct object. Second example. Do you know the girl that is sitting on my bike? Do you know the girl? If I just take this piece of information out of the sentence, you would not know which girl I'm talking about. Do you know the girl? Which girl? That is sitting on my bike. That is the girl I'm referring to. Do you know the girl? Which girl? That is sitting on my bike. So here, that is functioning as the subject of the relative clause. That is sitting, right? Verb phrase is helping verb, sitting main verb. Here, that is functioning as the object of the verb. So that can refer to both people and things. In the first example, it's referring to a thing. In the second example, it's referring to a person, and it's giving essential information. And it can function as the object of the verb, as well as the subject of the relative clause as well. All right. The next we have is which, which refers to a thing, and it is used to give non-essential information, but I've seen some people using it to give essential information as well, but I don't suggest that. If you want to give essential information about a thing, use that. If you want to give essential information about a person, use that or who. Okay. Okay, examples. Example number one. We live in Delhi, which is considered one of the most polluted cities in India. We live in Delhi is the main sentence, right? It's a complete sentence. We live in Delhi. Now, Delhi, which is considered one of the most polluted cities in India. This is a relative clause, a dependent clause, which is giving information about the noun Delhi. But since Delhi is already a proper name, an identified name, this information is extra, non-essential, right? So here, which is working as the subject of the relative clause, which is considered what, one of the most polluted cities in India, right? And we have this comma which is offsetting it from the main sentence because this piece of information is extra, right? Second example, my brother took my only leather shoes which I bought from a shop in China. My brother took my only leather shoes. So you guys know which shoes I'm talking about. I'm making it particular here, right? So we already know which shoes I'm talking about. The speaker is talking about. So this piece of information which I bought from a shop in China is non-essential, right? And since it's non-essential, we have a comma to offset it, right? If it was in the middle of the sentence, we would use two commas to offset it. All right. So my brother took my only leather shoes. It's referring to a thing. Delhi, it's referring to a thing, and it's giving non-essential information. In the first example, it's working as the subject, and in the second example, it's working as the object of the verb. I bought my only leather shoes. Shoes which, right? So it can function as both the subject of this of the relative clause and the object of the relative clause. All right. The last relative pronoun we have is whose. Whose is used to refer to the possession of a person or a thing or an animal. All right. And can give both essential and non-essential information. Examples. Example number one. Students whose parents are waiting in room number 12 come with me. Students come with me. Which students whose parents are waiting in room number 12? These are the students I'm asking to come with me, right? Students whose parents are waiting in room number 12. So I'm referring to the position of these students. Students whose parents. So it's working as an adjective of the noun parents. Whose parents, this is the subject, are waiting in room number 12, right? Second example, Rahul, proper name. So whatever information I give about Rahul is going to be non-essential. Whose father is an IPS officer, non-essential information, has gifted me a beautiful car. The core sentence is Rahul has gifted me a beautiful car, right? And I'm just giving information about Rahul, talking about his position. Whose father is an IPS officer, right? But since Rahul is a proper name, this information is non-essential. And since it's non-essential, we have commas to offset it. All right. So this is how we use these pronouns in a relative clause. Now, how many types of relative clauses we have? We already know that we have two types of relative clauses. Number one, restrictive relative clauses, and number two, non-restrictive or non-essential relative clauses. Essential or restrictive relative clause, non-essential or non-restrictive relative clause. Let's talk about them one by one. Restrictive. We already know what a restrictive relative clause is. It is a relative clause that gives essential information about a noun it modifies, about the noun it comes after, right? So a restrictive relative clause is an adjective clause that starts with the relative pronoun. It has to. That is why we're calling it a relative pronoun. And it gives an essential or restrictive information about the noun it modifies, right? So it is a dependent clause that starts with the relative pronoun and gives essential information about the noun it modifies, about the noun it sits after. All right. Let me show you some examples. Example number one. You need to buy a laptop that can support this software. you need to buy a laptop. What kind of a laptop that can support this software? That is a kind of a laptop I am talking about, right? So I am helping you to identify which kind of a laptop I am talking about, right? You need to buy a laptop. What type of a laptop that can support this software, right? So that can support this software is an essential or restrictive relative clause which is giving information about the noun laptop, making it specific, right? Second, he is the man who killed your uncle. He is the man. Which man? Who killed your uncle, right? So who killed your uncle is a relative clause which is giving information about the noun man, helping us identify which man we're talking about. He's the man. Which man? Who killed your uncle? Who killed your uncle, right? Third, people whose kids are inside the building are requested to come back in an hour, right? People, which people whose kids are inside the building, these are the people who are requested to come back in an hour, not all the people, right? People whose kids are inside the building. So whose kids are inside the building is a relative clause starting with the relative pronoun whose and giving essential information about it, all right? People whose kids are inside the building. So when a relative clause gives essential information about a noun, it modifies. We don't use a comma. Note this, this is very important. We don't use a comma, right? And without this piece of information, without the relative clause, the sentence has a different meaning, right? The noun that it comes after is not identified. All right. Now, non-restrictive relative clause. What is a non-restrictive relative clause? Very simple. It is a relative clause, uh, which is basically an adjective clause, right? Which gives non-essential information about the noun it refers to and modifies. And since the information it provides is non-essential, is extra, it is offset, it is separated using commas. Again, I'm repeating this. A non-restrictive relative clause comes after a noun and gives non-essential information about it. Why? Because the noun is already identified. And since it gives non-essential information about the noun it comes after, about the noun it modifies, it is offset, it is separated using commas. All right? Let me show you some examples. Example number one. Did you talk to Ria, who is the class monitor here? Did you talk to Ria is the main sentence. Ria, who is the class monitor here? Ria is a proper name. It's a proper name of a person, right? So it does not need any modification in order to be identified. It is already identified. So whatever information you give about Ria is going to be non-essential, and that is why we have this comma. Did you talk to Ria? Who is the class monitor here? Second, Mark. Mark is a proper name, right? So whatever information you give about Mark is going to be non-essential. So Mark, whom I teach English, or who I teach English, both are fine, right? Mark, who I teach English, claims to have seen a ghost, right? So Mark is a proper name of a person. Whatever information you give about Mark is going to be non-essential. And that is why we have commas after mark and before the main verb, right? Because this is non-essential information, right? Mark, whom I teach English or who I teach English, claims to have seen a ghost. All right, third example. His communication skills, which I believe is highly underused, can get him a good job. His communication skills can get him a good job, right? I'm talking about his communication skills. There is nothing else in this communication skills, right? Just communication skills as a whole, right? So his communication skills, which I believe is very underused. So I'm obviously talking about his communication skills, but this is not helping us identify it. All right, it's already identified, right? This is not making it more specific. So since it's not making it more specific, this is not helping us identify this noun. Since it's already specific, we are going to use commas to offset it. His communication skills, which I believe is highly underused, can get him a good job. All right. So this is how we use a non-essential relative clause or a non-restrictive relative clause, right? I can also use whose to give non-essential information. For example, Mark, whose father is my father's friend, claims to have seen a ghost. Mark, whose father is my father's friend, claims to have seen a ghost. I can also use whose to give non-essential information. All right. Now, Relative clauses can also start with conjunctions such as why, when, where, and how. This is something you have to note. All right. Relative clauses can start with these words as well. Examples. Number one, I don't know the reason why he left such a good job. I do not know the reason. Which reason? Why he left such a good job. So why he left such a good job is your relative clause starting with the relative pronoun why, right? Giving information about the noun reason. I don't know the reason. What reason? Why he left such a good job. That was the day when I joined this organization. Which day? When I joined this organization. That was the day. Which day? When I joined this organization. Starting with when. Third, do you know a place where we can hang out right now? Do you know a place? What kind of a place? Where we can hang out right now, right? A place where we can hang out right now. So it's giving information about the noun place. Fourth, the way how you handled the situation was good. The way was good. What way? How you handled the situation was good. I can omit this pronoun as well. The way you handled the situation was good. This can also be done. All right. So relative clauses can also start with words such as why, when, where, and how. Right. Go to my website www.englishwithashish.com and you will find a post on relative clauses and you will have more examples. Right. The link to the post is in the description as well. So that is all about today's lesson, guys. Now we know what a relative clause is, how it looks like, what it does, how to identify it, right? And how many types of relative clauses we have, how to use them, everything about them, all right? So hope you enjoyed the lesson. Hope you had fun. Hope you already have subscribed to the channel. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Press that notification button as well so that every single time I come up with a lesson, you get notified, and make sure you share the lesson with others so that they can also learn something new. And I'll see you guys very soon. Till then, keep learning. Have fun.